Well. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to BS Your Way Through Life. I'm so happy you're all here today. I am actually doing a live. So if I have any random, like, oh, welcome, come in, or whatever, uh, just be warned, be prepared. Anyway, so yes, today's a live, and some of my podcasts I will be doing live, just so you know. And it opens up an opportunity for anyone for me to do Q&A, and for people to ask questions, and I can give answers and stuff, whatever the topic is that we're doing. Currently, today, our topic is going to be on our relationship. It has to do with relationships today, and it's bringing back compassion. And uh, rem- uh, uh, my title is "We Are a Team Fighting Different Battles on Different Fields. Sometimes we just forget how hard each other's battles are." So, it's this is a topic that I think is really, really important, because it really helps us to come out of ourselves and helps us to see the other side a little bit, because we get so wrapped up in what we're doing, our agenda. Like me, as a mom, I get so wrapped up in how, for example, so one day, actually several days, but this particular day, um, I had a rough day. There was constant spills and dishes being broken, and if it wasn't a cat puking on the floor, it was a kid spilling something or breaking a plate. There was constant fighting and whining, and it just was one of those days. And if you're a mom, you're going to totally get that, right? Poop, pee everywhere. Yes, it was just, and I just was going to lose my mind. And it was like I was fighting a battle all day long. And my wonderful and amazing husband arrives home around 6 or so, and he comes in, and I'm just like, oh, yay, a human being, an adult human being, someone that I can let out all my, frustrations to. And immediately he walks through the door. I start spilling out all my guts of all my frustrations of the day. And I'm talking and talking, and all of a sudden, he's just like, can can I land? And he's just like, just like frustrated. And I was just like, whoa. And at first, as naturalness would have it, I felt hurt. I felt like, oh, how dare he? This is a few years ago. This is like 5 or so years ago. Anyway, and I was, just like, oh, how dare he? I'm just like, here I am complaining about how horrible I had, and now he's adding to it. And anyway, and then he's like, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, and I'm just like, and at first I was upset and remained upset for a minute, but then, as I have been teaching myself to do for many years, and have been, because this takes work, it takes practice to learn these skills, but you can learn them. So I said, okay, to myself, I had a conversation. I always have these fictitious arguments in my head. At first, I would let all my upset come out in my head. But then I was like, okay, we need to understand where he's coming from first before we start, getting right. So I calm myself down, and I'm like, okay. And then I just apologize. I'm so sorry, and then whatever. And then I said, hey, how was your day? And it's just like, and then he just started going off. It's like, I had a terrible day, and I made a huge mistake. I accidentally double booked, and somebody got, and it was frustrating to the clients, and I can't believe I did that. And he's just going on about how, the frustrations he had, um during his day. He had a frustrating day. And apparently, unknown to me, of course, so it wasn't like I was necessarily in the wrong or anything, but he was also so frustrated with his day. He was so overwhelmed by his day that he wasn't ready to handle my day yet. And I didn't even think like what his day was like, how he was feeling when he walked through that door. I was just like, oh, hooray. explode on him, right? And that doesn't mean that I did anything wrong or that's bad of me to do that. That's fine. We're each other's besties. We're each other's, people that we're able to cry on each other's shoulders, right? But sometimes we have to realize, okay, are they ready for what I have to give them? We do have to think about these things. And so that experience really opened me up. And I'm like, you know what? He's tired. And my husband, when he comes through the door, he has a load of stuff in his arms. He's got his planner, his lunch bowl, and his water bottle, and then a ton of linens that he's carrying in the door. And so, he's standing there trying to listen. He's holding all this stuff, and he's tired, right? And I am so blind to it because all I can think about is what a horrible day I had, right? And I did, and I needed someone to cry on, right? But I needed to give him a minute. So after I'd given him a minute and he was able to explode about his day, and he's like, look, I'm so sorry. It's just like, I was just so tired and so frustrated about my day, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no. And instead of getting critical or being like, well, that's no excuse for explode, for getting upset at me, I was already having a hard day. No, I didn't do that. Instead of, no, I totally understand. I totally get it. You had a rough day too. And just like, we both just need to sit and chill and just like, snuggles or whatever it is. Like every couple has their own thing. Some couples are snuggly, some couples are not. They like their space, whatever it is, whatever your little regime or whatever is, however you guys take, that's great. Utilize it however. But my husband and I, we like to every night we like to sit, we like to snuggle, we like to watch our favorite YouTube shows, and also eat dinner together or whatever, or eat a nice sweet snack that I make or something. We've been doing that forever. So anyway, but this is something that was like so eye-opening for me. So from then on out, when he'd come home, even if I had a horrific day, I was just like, okay, we don't know what kind of day he's had. So I let him come. I let him come in. I let him put it on his things. And while he's putting his things down, I ask him, how was your day? So while he's landing, he's able to let out whatever was going on in his day. So as soon as he gets his routine done, puts everything away, his planner and his water bottles, his lunch bowl, and putting the linens in the wash, unless I've already done it or whatever, or just whatever he has to do to land. I ask him how his day was, and he talks, he verbalizes, he's very verbal. And so I'm very verbal. And he tells me about his day, and I listen. And then as soon as he's done, then I'm just like, oh, and then it at the beginning of our marriage, it's just me. I was really good about like, how's your day? And he'd tell his day. And then it took a while, but eventually within a few years of our marriage, he finally was like, oh, how was your day? He would, after he got done talking about his day, he'd start asking me. So he started asking me, he was like, well, how was your day? And then that was him saying, I'm ready to hear whatever you have. And then I'd be able to pour out my frustrations and whatever. Oh, can't tell you. Like, I've dealt with so much poop and pee today, so much fighting and whining, and he's just, and then he'll ask the dad questions like, is there anybody that I need to like, lay down the rules or the line to, and I'm just like, no, all good, taken care of. But if there was like, yes, I need you to talk to so and so about such and such, if you could enforce that would be great. Because if you are a mom, you know what I'm talking about. Dads have way more effect in 90% of most cases, way more drive and effect than a mom. I can say things all day, but they hear me all day, so they kind of start tuning me out. But when dad talks, it's like, listen up. So yes. Anyway, but yeah, and that's another thing too, is like, okay, so that's one example, right? Another example would be, so in the past, and I know for a lot of couples, finances are a huge frustration, and we seriously need to do a podcast on this one. But finances are so can be like such a huge thorn in any marriage. It can be a cause for all kinds of argument and even divorce. So it's important to know that you never, ever need to fight about money. Ever. Okay? Ever, 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 ever. That never needs to be an argument ever. Okay. Now, there are certain abusive situations or toxic situations to which things need to be figured out, but we're not talking about that here, right? So, for example, a toxic situation would be is if if your partner was like hiding a ton of money from you because they are for selfish reasons or whatever, or if they're doing stuff with money and they're just hiding it away like big amounts, like let's say your partner was saving away thousands and thousands of dollars, and if they're doing it because they're trying to surprise you for something or whatever, fine, whatever. I don't However you do your finances, but if there was something going on, they were using that money for not good things or whatever, then maybe that'd be an issue. But that's a rare situation. So, and we're not talking about that here. So, moving back to, so money should never be a reason to argue. It's just not, right? And I know that there are women out there, and there may even be men out there who make purchases and they try to hide that they made that purchase because they know that if they want it, but then if they tell their spouse about it, either their spouse and they're like, no, that's a waste of money, and they don't want to hear their judgment or their opinions. Well, let me tell you something. Okay. Believe in your spouse that they are a good person, right? If you married a generally good person, everyone's flawed. Everyone has their like anger issues, their impatient issues or whatever, right? That doesn't necessarily make them a terrible person, right? But if you married a genuinely good person, there is no reason for you to hide anything from them. That is not a healthy relationship. Okay. It's just not. So you need to, hey, I want this dress. And maybe your husband would be like, that is a waste of money. Who would buy that dress and spend it for that much? And you just say, I don't care, I want it. And I'm like, do you have enough money so I can get it? If he manages the money. But if you do, say, we have enough money, I could get it. I'd love it. Or I'd like this for my birthday or whatever. Or just like, and if and more than likely your spouse, especially if you have the vibe of you love me and I know that you don't care that I get this, even though you think it's a waste of money. If you have that like that positive energy when you're asking about it, and you're just like, do we have enough money to get it? And they're like, well, I guess we do. You're the one that does the finances. You would know. And I'm just like, and they're like, yeah, it looks like we have enough. Is it okay? Or is there anything else that I'm not thinking about expenses wise that we have, or whatever? And it's like, no, you're good. Go ahead and get it. But there's no reason to like make a purchase and then hide the thing, right? That's not a way to live. Don't do that. Okay. Don't do that. But anyway, that was a little side trail. We can go way more into that, but we're not. So my other experience here with finances, again, finances can always be a fight, right? And in the beginning of our marriage, when we made so little, I mean, so, 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 so little, we were very, very like, our money was so tight. And and anyway, and so whenever we had any kind of surprise bill or anything, it was just like shook my husband to his core. He was like, ah, and he'd freak out. And and it was a lot. It was a lot at the beginning. It was just like, okay, because I grew up in a family that was poor all the time. We never had any money. So I was used to it. So it was like, and my father always laughed. And I grew up in a family that just made fun of situations like, yeah, we're poor. We love it. We owned it, right? We totally owned it. We didn't, if bills didn't get paid and the lights got shut off, and we'd survive. Eventually money would come back in and we'd turn the power back on, right? It was just like what it was, right? So I learned the humor side of it. So for me, it wasn't like freaking out, but understandably on my husband's side of the fence, he's the one that's providing and he's making sure that his family is cared for, and he does not want to fail his family. So it's a huge deal to him. So whenever I'd bring up, money things, then it was just like, we never fought about it ever. And I allowed him feel about it however he felt about it, and said, yeah, I know, and I'm so sorry. And then after validating his feelings, then I'd bring in, well, we're okay, and I'm okay. We're okay. We're still living, a roof still over our head. We're still good. And money's, it's going to work out. Right. And so, but eventually I got to a point where it was just where I was stuck in that, I was stuck in the situation where I uh, was afraid to bring up, bills and money situations because of the reactions before. But then I forget what it was, but something was said in some sort of business class or whatever I was in. And I was just about money. I'm like, oh my goodness. And I'm like, I'm stuck in this pattern, but that's not the case anymore. When I tell my spouse about our money situation or a bill that comes up, I just need to trust that he's going to handle it fine. And even if he doesn't handle it fine, that's okay. He's allowed not to, but he needs to know the information. So I just started just saying it like it was, not trying to flower it up. I just like, hey, I forgot that, the power bill was supposed to come out today, and it just did. It overdrew our account. I'm going to have to pull money out of our savings to cover it. And I just, matter of fact, with no like scared or anxiety energy involved. And guess what the reaction was? Oh, okay, sounds great. Right. So here's the thing too. So there was a day recently where money was overdrawn because the bill came out that I did forget about. This happens more often than I'd like it to. And I was just like, oh, crud. And I had to pull money. I had to scramble because I'm just like, okay, where do we have cash that I can pull out of? Because there's a certain savings account we can't pull out of because we have to use that for our taxes. So I'm just like, okay, there's money in this envelope and it's saving for something else or whatever. So I text my husband. I'm like, hey, our account overdrew today and I had to pull out this money, and I ran to the bank and put it in so I could cover it and make sure that we didn't get charged a fee from the bank or whatever. And and so I just, matter of fact thing. And we have already been going, like, I'm sure all of you understand, you go through phases where you are just bleeding money. And right now we're going through a phase of bleeding money. No matter what money comes in, it's already spoken for, right? It's just the way it is. So we're just bleeding money. And we had already like had several situations that were like this. So there was a little bit of a fear in me that maybe he would be like, oh my gosh, this is so frustrating. Why do we keep having this thing happen? Blah, blah, blah. We're bleeding so much money. And so I was already stressed because I already had a lot going on my plate with school forms and different things. And I literally had to scramble to make this happen so I could make whatever I had in my day that was going on and get that done on time. Right. And it was just like, it was nuts. And so I was already overwhelmed and stressed. And then my amazing, wonderful, sweet husband sent me a text message saying, that's great, honey. I am so grateful for you for covering that and making sure that you're doing all that work. Because I certainly don't want to have to, figure out all these bills and do all that, because I do all the electronic bills and everything. And he is so grateful that and he said how grateful he was that I did all that. And I just was like, oh, thank you. I needed to hear that. I needed to hear that what I did mattered and that I wasn't just screwing it up, that I was doing a good job. I needed to hear that. I think we forget that, to tell each other that sometimes, to tell each other, like, even in the middle of chaos, yeah, this is chaotic. Yeah, things aren't being done quite the way we wanted them to, but you're doing a good job despite it, right? So, sorry. Okay. Was not expecting to get emotional. Let me take a tip of my tea. A sip of my tea. I can talk, I promise. Never do a podcast without tea. It just makes podcasting so much more enjoyable. Anyway, all right. So, and I hope with telling you these examples, it helps spark, stories in your mind of like maybe how you could have done it better how you could have done it better in those situations, or when situations come up, you're like, okay, here's a better way to do this. So for example, um, my husband years ago, I had broken my back. Yes, that was fun. I had broken my back, and so I was laid up for 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks. It was not fun. And I had a compression fracture. And and I literally was not allowed to do anything. And I was stuck on the couch for I was just stuck on the couch, and I was stuck in the bed, right? I couldn't do much. And then my husband ended up taking he would like get things going in the morning and then go off to work. And then my kids would fill in the blanks. They would, my older kids had to cook meals and whatever like that. They definitely learned a lot during this time. And they had to really they had to really just pull up their big girl and boy panties and get to work and do everything. And then I'd have to ask him to bring things to me. It was so annoying. I hate being laid up. Anyway, but then my husband would come home from work, and then he would have to do, the night shift. Basically, he would have to take care of all the kids' issues and get up with them in the middle of the night and just all the stuff that I do, right? That I usually do. And when we first were married for the first few years, every time we'd come home, like we have places for things, right? So we have our spray bottle, and it's usually always up on the fridge. But often when he'd come home, he's just like, "Why is this spray bottle right here in this very random spot?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I was using it. A kid called me, and I guess I just set it down where I was standing." And it's just like, but it would get annoying sometimes. It'd be just like, "Ugh, do you have to ask, the why question when you come home?" I'm like, you really understood all the little things that are going on during that. You'd understand why that's there, right? But I was just like, I'd always brush it off. I'm like, whatever, it's whatever. Yes, that's frustrating that you have to go looking for the bottle, or that you find it there and you needed it to be in its place or whatever. It's just one example of some stuff. But so my husband would be in the middle of like cooking dinner or making something, and then a child would call him, and then he would go, what I usually do, he'd go, solve the child problem, come back, and he's like, okay, now where did I put that thing I had? Like if he had a butter knife in his hand, it's like, where did I put that? And then he'd trace its steps. It's like, oh, why did I put it here? And I'm just like, huh? Now you know why things are placed in random places when you come home. And he's just like, oh man, I'm such a jerk. And I just started, we both just laughed. It was so funny because he had no idea, all the little things, and like getting called away 15 different times when you're trying to do one thing. Because he's just like, there is no such thing as a straight line when you're a mom. There just isn't. Anyway. And so it was just a wonderful moment, for my husband and I to realize, okay, all right. And so that was that side of it. Then there was a day. So my husband has to do his planner every week. And for whatever reason, he couldn't do his planner. He was gone somewhere, and he'd forgotten his planner, and his clients needed to be texted, and his planner needed to be every week. He has to like update his planner and text the clients and do this whole ordeal. And he couldn't do it. So he says, I'm sorry, but I need this done by, a certain, time. Because if it gets too late, then texting his clients will be rude. So he's just like, will you be able to do this for me? I'm like, yeah, sure. No problem. I can do it. So I got out his plan and I started doing it. It took me so long to do it. And my mind, I thought it was going to blow up because of all the little meticulous things that he has to do in his planner. I wanted to cry by the end of it. I was just like, I don't like this. And I'm like, you deal with this every single time you do your planner. He's like, yep, I do. Because he has to update his like package sheets and everything. And I'm just like, that sucks. And then I just thanked him for doing that, because he does that for our family, all these things. And that's the thing, is like, I do all these little things for our family every day. And then my husband said to me one time, and it was so beautiful. Because I just said, thank you for doing so much for our family. Because, he was explaining his day, and I just thanked him for everything he was doing. And he's just like, well, you know what? And I was just like, you do so much for our family. He's like, he's just like, you do, and then he points at me, he says, you do so much so that I can do so much. And I'm like, oh, that's how I feel. And that's how it should be. We each, like, I do so much of what I can do with the house and the kids and everything so that he can do so much to make sure that we are provided for and we have a roof over our head. And this is where it's compassion. You can, hopefully you can feel the compassion within these stories of how we were able to like understand each other a little bit, understand where each other was coming from, the frustrations we go through. Because like honestly, sitting there for, for so many years watching my husband do his planner, I didn't think it was that big of a deal. But then when I had to do it, I was like, this is horrible. And even though I am technically pretty good with paperwork and things like this, I didn't like it. It was not fun. So, yeah, it's just, yeah. It's interesting. We really don't know how each other feels. And you have to think about too, like everybody is on their different levels. For instance, I might be really good at being tactful and considering people's feelings when I say stuff. So I think about what I'm saying before I say it. Other people might not have tact and they might just say whatever it is, and it comes out so rude or blunt, and it just sounds like, wow, you're a jerk, really? And in their head, they're thinking, well, I'm not being a jerk, I'm just saying this, but the way they said it sounded jerky. You know what I mean? So it's just like we're all on our different levels of what we're good at and what we're not. So maybe I'm scared of heights, right? Which I am. And my husband is not. So him jumping off a diving board, not a big deal. Me jumping off a diving board, it's like, ah! But if he were to sit there and be like, you're such a wimp and chicken, why don't you just jump off the diving board? You're so, and just getting irritated with me. What does that do for me? It gets into my psyche and thinks, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough, right? So when we're getting snippy with each other and getting upset each other for whatever's going on in each other's different roles that we have, then or each other's different responsibilities, well then we're basically telling our partners that we're not good enough, that you're not good enough, right? You didn't do like what was it? It was a TikTok, I think I saw. We were watching memes or whatever, and it said point of view when your wife asks you to take out the trash, and she says, I thought I asked you to take out the trash. And she's like, yeah, I'm gonna do it tomorrow. She's like, fine, I'll just take it out myself. It's like, and then the husband immediately like jumps out of his chair. It's just like, wait a minute, wait a minute. Okay, here's something that's okay. Yes, you can take out the trash yourself. It's fine, but don't be snotty about it. Just like, hey, you know what? No worries. I got it. I'm just going to take it out right now. Okay. No guilt involved. No, like, you disappointed me. You're not good enough type of thing. No, don't do that. Because maybe just like you, somebody asks you to do something and you can't get to it right away, or you don't want to get to it right away, and you figure it can wait a little longer. So you let it wait a little longer. Maybe putting away the laundry, you let it wait for 2 weeks, or you just end up using all the clothes before you put them away, and then they just get washed and put back in the put away pile. Anyway, so there is no reason to get upset. So first of all, in that situation with that TikTok, here's what she could have done, right? Number one, in any of these situations, if you've asked your husband, could you do this for me? And he doesn't get to it, don't stress over it, okay? First of all, if you need it done right away, you say, hey, I need the trash taken out right now. Will you be able to do that? If not, it's okay. I'll get to it because I'm done. I'm doing this right now. And this would be super helpful. So you're calling in a hero as opposed to being like, can you please help me? Instead, call in your hero. Just like, hey, I need some help. Could you take out this trash right now? Because if you give them the right now thing, then they know, oh, it needs to be done now. The men are logical. But if you say, hey, honey, the trash needs taking out, if they're in the middle of watching a show, or they're in the middle of a game, or they're in the middle of a project, or they were about ready to head out the door for something else, then they're going to be like, sure, I'll get that done. And then they go do their thing, or they continue their show, right? They're not going to just jump to it. But if you say, hey, I need it done right now, are you able to? Make sure you have that respect of their time in your lingo. Make sure you're saying, if you can't, it's okay. I'll get to it or whatever. Or just say, hey, just when you come back, if you could take it out. Or when the show's over, could you take it out? Right. And if they forget about it, then it's, and you have a moment, just take it out. Don't make, or just say, hey, were you still able to take out the trash? If not, no worries. I got it. I'll just finish this up and then I'll take out the trash. You know what I mean? Do you see how there doesn't need to be an argument at all? Where there's compassion there. You're having compassion and consideration for their time, their feelings, their different, roles and things like that. We just never know what somebody might be going through. There was an incident that I get so frustrated because I'll buy these bags of fruit at Costco, and there's a slit that you can open it so you can reseal it. And my children have a habit of cutting it open, and it just drives me nuts. And so I came home one day and I see that the mango bag had been cut open, and I was just like, who cut this open? I thought it was Riley, and I just started saying, who cut this open? There's a slit here, there's a way to open it. And I just started spouting out my frustration. All of a sudden my husband is like, it was me, and thank you so much for reminding me about the frustrating situation that I had. And I was just like, oh my goodness. And then he just, apparently, my poor sweet man had a request from a child for some mangoes. So he tried opening the bag, but it was struggling. And when he opened it, it split. It split open at the top, and mangoes went everywhere, and it was a mess. And the child, I don't know if the child cried or whatever, but it ended up being just like this crazy chaotic situation. So he picked it up and just cut the bag or whatever and just made it, roll it up to seal it, type of thing. And I was just like, I am so sorry. I thought it was one of the kids that did it. If you did it, always okay. You're allowed to do whatever you got to do with these bags, honey. Not a big deal. And he's just like, so frustrating for him. And I'm just like, oh, and I didn't feel upset at him at all. I just felt so bad because so many times, I've had a frustration situation very similar to that, and somebody's being critical of the way that I did it. And I'm like, but you weren't there. You have no idea how this was. There's a reason why I did it. So yes, it's really important that we are compassionate to each other. Because like I could have been like, well, okay, I'm excuse me, just like, don't you get mad, yell, none of that is necessary. Zero necessary. Okay. All right. So let's switch gears just a little bit here, even though I've kind of covered it. What if I can just hear somebody asking me the question, Buffy, what if I'm the one that's constantly getting criticized for my role and what's not being done, right? I have a friend who actually this happened to my father too. A friend of mine, and also my father and my mother, my dad ended up retiring from his job, and then all of his retirement money went to paying off debts. And so my dad had a secondhand job that, or a little, he became self-employed a little bit, and he fixed washers and dryers, but it didn't bring in enough money to be able to, cover all of our funds and bills. And so my mother had to be the main worker. And so she went to work, and my dad basically stayed home and took care of kids. And this is when I was old. I was an adult, but I was in and out of the house because I was renting an apartment somewhere. But anyway, I remember my dad. My dad was like at home. He was doing dishes, or he was doing something. My mom comes home and she is like frustrated. She's just like, why is everything such a mess? And why aren't the dishes done? And she starts pointing out all these things that were undone. And mind you, this is what my father used to do to my mother when he was the main worker. And my dad He's just a very funny man. And I was standing there listening to this, and my dad, while my mom's folding her arms, and my dad's just like, I've been doing. He's just like, because he's just like, I've been doing this, and then there was this that happened, and this, and he starts huffing and puffing, and then my mom and I started laughing, and then my mom's just like, well, now you know how I felt when you came home and said that. And then my mom and dad laughed. He's like, yeah, you're right. He's just like, I deserve that. And anyway, and it was just so funny because it was just like, it wasn't until they switched roles that my dad clearly got a view on how difficult my mother's job really was. And I know that there is a lot of uh, husbands out there who don't understand. And I know they come home and they're asking the why questions. The why wasn't this done? What are you doing all day? They can't fathom what you're doing all day. And it's so funny because my friend, he recently became the dad at home, and she went to go be the breadwinner. And he he said to me, he's just like, I used to think to myself, I know she did stuff, but I used to think to myself, what does she do all day? Why do I come home and certain things aren't done? It doesn't make sense to me. But it's just like, but you know what? Now that I'm the stay-home dad, I can put a load of laundry in, and going to plan on doing laundry today. I'll put a load of laundry in, and it doesn't get into the dryer till later at night because I'm running so and so around, and then I'm running so and so around, and then I'm picking up this mess that my little toddler made, and I'm doing that. You know what I mean? And it's just like I can't get anything done. I'm like, yep, there, yes, exactly. So it's not easy. And going to work and recently another friend of mine, her and her husband ended up switching roles. She became the breadwinner and he became the stay-home dad. And she says to me, after doing it for about a month, she's like, this sucks. I don't like getting up and going to work. I'd rather be the stay-home mom because it was like, grounds that she was used to. And even though it's really hard and there's parts of it that going out to work is easier, she would rather this. And he would rather that. And it's just like, see, we just need to understand, like I said, in my title, that we need to remember, despite we're a team, we are a team, even though we are on completely different battlegrounds, right? We're in different battlefields, fighting different battles. Each one has its hard. It does. And we need to be compassionate when each other is frustrated. And let's say your husband comes home late, right? Maybe he comes home late and you're upset. Don't let your first reaction to be upset. Instead, you're just like, oh, embrace them. And even though you might be feeling irritated, embrace and say, I am so glad you're home. I'm so glad that you made it home. I was getting a little worried because you were a little late, but I'm just glad you're home. And then usually an explanation will roll out. With my own husband, it was always like, yeah, I'm so sorry. My other client ended up asking for an extra half hour. And so I ended up being a half an hour over, which put me late doing this. And I remember at the beginning, he used to worry that I was upset at him. And he would just be like, used to like kind of talk fast and be just like, I had an extra, I'm so sorry. And he'd just be like, ready for the battle. And I was just like, no, don't be sorry. I'm just glad you're home safe. And yeah, I figured I'm just, I know this happens with your clients and everything. No big deal. And then after, he finally realized, oh, she doesn't get upset because I can't help that I'm home late sometimes. And I was like, yeah, so it's just a matter of fact, just like, and if he can, he'll always send me a text message just like, hey, I had a random client to call and I squeezed them in and I got them in, so I'll be home later. Or, hey, I ended up, shooting the breeze with this client for a little bit before coming home, whatever it is. So it's just like, there's no reason to make a big deal out of it. And because I was compassionate, I was just grateful he was home safe. And I was just grateful that he didn't have an accident or anything, right? So if your spouse is home late, and because I know that's a common frustration, right? You just welcome them home with loving arms and just say, I'm so glad you're home. And you weren't home quite when I expected, so I got a little worried, but I'm just glad you're here now. I'm sure you got held up or things got difficult at work or whatever. And then let the story come. Let the story be. So, let's see what time it is. Okay, we need to wrap this up. It's time to close this out. Anyway, and I wanted to leave you with one last thought here. Okay, so yeah, again, if you're the one, let's reiterate here. If you're the one that is being criticized, here's what you do. You don't make a fight out of it, okay? Don't do that. Don't be like, well, excuse me, you don't have any idea what I'm going through. And I'm just like, well, there is a reason, there is reasons for it. And you can explain them all you want, but you don't have to get upset with them, or you don't have to get defensive or offended. I'm just like, yeah, like I left that bottle here because I got called away 15 different times. And you can even, if it, whatever, just make sure that you aren't making an argument out of it. If they decide to be upset about it, don't participate in that argument. It's not a big deal. Be kind, be considerate, be loving. Maybe they're upset about it because, how frustrating is it to come home from work? You had a complicated day, and then you need the spray bottle that's on the fridge and it's not there and you can't find it anywhere, and you're just like, great, now I just get to spend time looking for this instead of just getting this done. And it's just, you're frustrated because of all that. It's not necessarily that you're frustrated at that they're frustrated at you. They're frustrated at the situation. And especially with men, that is 99% usually the case, is that they are frustrated at the situation, not at you. So don't take it personally. Just be like validating. Just validate. I am so sorry. I know I get called away and I put it in place. It's so frustrating. And then help them look for it or whatever. And then here you go. I found it or whatever. Or they find it. Oh, I found it. And I'm just like, oh, good. I'm relieved. I'm so sorry for the frustration. I'll try to not put it in random places as much as possible. And, but then be forgiving instantly in those moments, because yes, it feels like you're being lashed out onto. It feels like you're being criticized and they don't have any idea what you've done. And maybe you've had a rough day and this is the last thing you need. Just let it go. They're obviously dealing with something inside. They're frustrated and they're just looking for something to just yell it out on. If you haven't listened to it yet, you should. In one of my podcasts, I don't know which number it is, but it's Tea Time with Jane, and I think it's called Men Need a Shoulder to Yell At or something like that. So like women need a shoulder to cry on and men need a shoulder to yell at. So that is a really good one. You should go listen to it. It has a lot of really good insights, and it also will help with this too and help give you some compassion. Okay. All right, ladies. And if there's any gentlemen listening, I hope you have a great day. I hope that you let compassion, love, and forgiveness fill your heart and make your relationships the best and the most amazing they could ever be. Let your spouse be your bestie. Have a great day. Rock on.